Alright, so today Bruce has brought us a Roland A-800 Pro Midi keyboard controller. So we're going to unbox this and see what we have here and see what's going to take to get it configured and working with a Tyros keyboard. Bruce would like to do the split keyboard configuration, so that's why he purchased this. So in the box we have our Midi controller and the owner's manual. And then this here is the software. Comes on a handy DVD, which no one uses.
That's also a program now too, software.
Right. And then we have the USB MIDI cable, and just USB cable for the MIDI, and a power adapter. So that's what comes with it. Bruce has purchased an extra. How long is this? 10 foot? 10 foot, Bruce? 10 foot?
Yes.
He purchased a 10-foot MIDI cable. So just looking at this initially here, what we've got. Seems a decent weight, not too heavy, but not so light that it feels cheap. It feels nice and solid. So we have our pitch bend control, or modulation control, stuff like that. Transpose, octave. So you can split the keyboard. You can split this controller keyboard as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that works. And yeah, guess we'll just find out what this will do.
Mention about the keys on it too. Where you're at.
Oh, and the keys. We'll know how they feel when we go to try it. But these are really nice feeling keys. They feel kind of like the keys on the Tyros keyboard, so they're a similar feel to that. They're not weighted, which I actually prefer. I don't like weighted keys, but they do have they're not soft either, so they do provide a little bit of resistance, but it's smooth. It doesn't feel like you have to really work to push them down. But they feel really good. So let's see what it takes to get this thing to work. So a while back I made a video on how to control the octave levels for your different split parts by assigning different octave level on the instruments and stuff like that. And pretty much you can do everything on the Tyros without having a second keyboard. But the advantages of having a second keyboard is it's a little easier to manipulate. For example, I've got a couple piano sounds and such on the left hand here. Now to set that all up, I did a split. Obviously, I have my parts 1 and 2 are the keyboard over here on the left, part 3 on the right. I also had to go into the settings and tell it not to use the sustain pedal on the part 3. And then I had to go into the effects controls and set the reverb and stuff on part 3 to be a little different. So I had to set it all up. And it's very doable. But it takes time. And of course you can save it as a registry. And as I mentioned earlier, we have this is the A-800 Pro that Bruce had bought because it was still a little cumbersome to set up all the keyboard features. Then he'll just take it home, he'll plug it into his Tyros. He's already got a split stand where he'll be able to put that above it, and then you just plug it in and go. So as you can see, I'm going to go over here. But as you saw, it's the same thing as having a split. The advantages is I could turn part 3 off because I wouldn't be using it. And now I have the full range of the keyboard here, and I have the full range of the keyboard there. Now let's go ahead and focus on how we connect this up very simply. Out of the box, the Roland has got some configurations that will work immediately with the Tyros. So you just got to know what to do. So let me show you that. So to do MIDI settings on the Tyros, you hit Function, and then you can go to MIDI, which is right here. And then just go to All Parts, and then go ahead and click Edit. So once you're in here, you'll notice you'll have your Receive tab. You've got a System tab, a Transmit tab, a Receive tab, and we want the Receive tab because that's what we're dealing with. And it's already set up. You won't have to change anything. If you use the MIDI A jack in and not the MIDI B, MIDI A automatically routes to all your song parts, 1 through 16. If you go to MIDI B, it's routed to individual parts on your keyboard. Now, of course, you can change any of these at any time, but if you do it this way, you don't have to change anything. This is just, think of these as just plain, these song parts you can think of just straight MIDI, nothing special about it. And you're just controlling the one voice that's in that part. If I go over here and I click on the part, I can change it, see it's off, or I can go song, or I can say right 1, right 2. And that's the different mode of the keyboard. We already have a way to control the Tyros. We've got plenty of controls for the Tyros are right here. We don't care about controlling the whole keyboard. We got all that in front of us as it is. So we really aren't concerned about switching to the keyboard part and using the controller to control the keyboard part. We would like it to control just one of the individual song parts. On the Roland controller, you're going to see it supports 2 parts, upper and lower. So upper is channel 1, and if I go to the lower channel, the lower part, it's channel 2. That is the defaults of the Roland controller right out of the box. So what that means is if you take this Roland keyboard and simply plug it into MIDI A in, the Tyros is already taking MIDI A in and assigning it to 16 song parts, separate from all the other stuff on your keyboard. And so any of the settings that you have on the top of this Roland back here are going to control only that one individual song part that you're playing with. Whereas if you use any of the other settings like the keyboard or the left or the right or those other parts, you'll find that these will make effects change on your whole keyboard. And I don't think you're going to really want that. If you take this and you plug it directly into MIDI A in, that's all you should have to do. And so it will be ready to go. So let me show you how you change instruments then after you plug it in. If you go into your mixer control, right down here, you've probably seen this screen. And it has your voices, your filters, your tone, your effects, all the things that you know are under mixer control. Now, if you hit the mixer control again, you will notice that the screen changes. Right now, see it says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll hit the mixer control again. Now it says 9, 10, 11, 12. Hit again. And it says song, style, multi-pad, mic. If I hit it again. And now it says rhythm. So you see it's a different mixing console for each part of your Tyros. And as I said, we are going to be controlling song parts when we plug into MIDI 1A. That's the default, is song parts. So we hit it again, these are the song parts. And as I mentioned, the Roland out of the box is using parts MIDI channel 1 and MIDI channel 2. So there you have it. That's it. That is your 2 channels that the Roland is controlling out of the box. So if you want to change the instrument from MIDI channel 1, we want to click this button here, C, which highlights this row. If you clicked D, then it would control this row. F would control all the settings on this row. Now, we just go ahead and hit the button right down here, and we're ready to change the instrument for MIDI part 1 on the music. So let's go ahead and change it to MIDI Synth Grant. So that's all we have to do. It's changed. Now, let's go ahead and go to part 2. That row is already highlighted, so we just hit the button. And now we're going to change the instrument. Let's go ahead and do silver trumpet. So now the instrument has been changed to the silver trumpet on MIDI channel 2 and to the piano on channel 1. So let's go back here and look at the Roland. We see that we have upper selected. And of course, upper is on channel 1. So we should be hearing the piano. Now, if we go to the lower selection, we'll notice that it changes to channel 2. That is going to be the silver trumpet. So that is it. All you do is plug the Roland into the Midi A-in port, and then you can change, using the mixer console, the instrument selections for part 1 and 2. Now, there's a few other things that are already configured on the Roland that will talk to other settings on your Tyros, and we'll go over those real quick. But basically, that's it. And now you have 2 separate keyboards. Unless you have a sustain pedal plugged into your Roland, the sustain pedal you hit on your Tyros will only control the instruments that you're playing through the Tyros. And if you want to have a sustain on your Roland instrument, you hook up another sustain pedal. You don't have to go in and say, okay, I want this part not to use the sustain pedal and stuff like that. So it's much easier to set up. So now we're going to go back to the Roland here, and we're going to look at some of the other settings that are configured out of the box. So as I showed, we have the lower and the upper, but you can also combine both channels. So both MIDI channel 1 and MIDI channel 2 play at the same time. Or you can go to split, and it will split the keyboard. So by doing that, you could literally have a double split here on the Roland, and then you could have your 3-part split of the left, the right 1 and 2, and the right 3 on your Tyros. So you could actually have, between the 2 keyboards, 5 parts. And then if you add accompaniment in there, that's actually could be potentially a 6-part. Now, one thing to keep in mind is, like I said, the Roland's got a lot of preset configurations out of the box without even having to program it. But they all default to channel 1. So any of the slider changes you make are going to be controlling the instrument on channel 1. So let me show you what some of those slider parts do. We got volume. That's configured out of the box. We have your reverb. We have chorus. Then down here, you're going to find attack and delay. Let's change the delay. These are a real quick layout of what's already configured. Likewise, you're going to find that these knobs do some stuff too. I'm not going to go into all of that because more than likely you're going to decide you want to change it. But I'm saying you'll find that you can control the volume, the attack, the delay, the reverb, the chorus, and many of the other effects between the sliders and the knobs are already pre-configured. Also, the pad is already set to play some drums. That's the default out of the box configuration. So you can plug it in and go without having to do a whole lot. And of course, you have your pitch bend and you have your modulation. Last but not least, a drum pad. That's a quick getting started of using the Roland A-800 Pro with a Tyros 4. I would like to point out about this controller. This controller was, how much was this, Bruce?
$500.
$449?
Well, about $400.
$399?
Yeah, $399.
Okay, so this controller was $399. And the keys, this is a 61, right?
What?
61?
Yes.
This is a 61 key, and the keys are nice. They're not weighted, but the velocity sensitive, it feels well. They're a little stiffer than the Tyros, but not in a bad way. They're not, but they're really equivalent. So your feel is almost the same, in my opinion. Unlike we have another controller over here this M Audio, and that thing is terrible to play on. It's the worst feeling keyboard I have ever touched. So, there's no comparison, but that's like only a $150 controller. But the feel of this Roland controller is, in my opinion, very, very nice, very good quality, a great complement to the Tyros. I think if you're looking for a controller and you're having trouble finding ones that have the actual 5-pinned-in MIDI plugs, Roland still makes them. There might be some other companies out there, but you've probably found it. They're hard to find. But Roland makes these all the way up to 88 key. So I would strongly recommend it. Very pleased with the quality. And so now let's get to programming it and configure it exactly how we'd like it.